Hello guys, welcome to Sociology Answer Writing session. So here I'll be giving you a question from paper 2 and then I'll give you the structure also. Take a moment, think about this and then we can discuss the answer also. The way you are going to proceed with the answer. I presume that you have already completed your coaching and everything. So we will be looking only the lines in which you will be answering this particular question. Okay, so here is the question that we have. How has B.R. Ambedkar identified the features of caste system and how is it different from the mainstream treatment of caste features? So if you look at the structure, this is how you need to answer. So these are the elements that you need to give. You need to talk about what is caste system in India and then talk about Ambedkar's viewpoints on the caste system and then give the criticisms of Ambedkar's point of view and talk about the difference and then you can conclude. So think about it, take a moment and then we can discuss this. So guys, what could be the introduction? How can you give an introduction for this? You can say the caste system is deeply ingrained in social institution in India, right? So sorry, it's a deeply ingrained social institution in India or of India, and which is closely tied to the Hindu philosophy, Hindu religion, and customs. So that's something which you can start with. And what does this mean? Dividing society into hierarchical categories based on the Varna system. So caste continues to influence socio-economic and political dynamics. So the mainstream perspective often attempt to justify or rationalize the caste system, but B.R. Ambedkar's critique was revolutionary, exposing its exploitative and rigid structure. And his ideas continue to shape discussion on caste and inequality in India. Now let's talk about caste system in India. So the caste system with over 2,800 caste and subcaste that originated from the Varna system, which is dividing society into four main Varnas. You can talk about that: Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, with a fifth group which are untouchables, which is outcast, which are Avarnas, which is outside the setup, outside the Varna scheme. So that's falling outside the framework. And this stratification is not just social, but also economic and religious, defining one's occupation, their social status, and access to resources also. Now, caste-based inequalities reinforced how by endogamy, hereditary membership to that, and the occupational segregation. So people are doing different occupation. Endogamy, you can only marry within the caste, and it is hereditary. So if you are born as a Brahmin, you will end as a Brahmin, and your sons and daughters will also be Brahmin, and it is creating a rigid and hierarchical social divisions. So after this, you need to talk about the Ambedkar's viewpoint on the caste system. So what he's talking about, Ambedkar provide a critique of the caste system, right? A strong criticism, highlighting its oppressive nature and challenging the very ideological foundation which is sustaining the caste system. So what are the key features that you need to mention? Firstly, the criticism of ancient text, right? Ambedkar denounced texts like Manusmriti, Arthashastra for justifying the subjugation of lower caste and glorifying the Brahminical superiority. So he's criticizing the ancient text. That's one thing. Then you can talk about, unit of Hindu society, right? Unlike individualistic societies, Ambedkar argued that Hindu society is organized around caste, not the individual or family. So caste hierarchy is divinely ordained with Brahmins considered superior for being born from the mouth of the god. So you know that, right? From where and all these stories we discussed in the chapter on caste systems. So I'm not getting into that details here. Then you talk about occupational rigidity. The caste system assign occupations based on birth and denying individuals the liberty to choose their profession and reinforcing that economic stagnation. So there is no question of mobility here. Again, you can talk about absence of equality, liberty, and fraternity. So Ambedkar highlighted the lack of fundamental democratic values in Hindu society where caste divisions perpetuates inequality and social exclusion. You can talk about the prohibition of inter-caste marriage, right? So again, Ambedkar, the critical feature of caste system is the prohibition of inter-caste marriage, which means endogamy, promotion of endogamy, which in fact locks individual into rigid, self-enclosed units. So that's another criticism. And then you can talk about religious justification and the state of mind. Again, if you look at Ambedkar, he emphasized that the caste superiority is deeply ingrained in the psyche and supported by religious doctrines as well. And he advocated for the rejection of irrational and inhuman shastras and encouraged rational thinking to challenge the caste hierarchies. And then caste as a closed system. See, open class system is open. There is openness and there is possibility of mobility, but caste is closed system. So there is no question of mobility, denying mobility and perpetuating that social inequalities. Then talk about sources of power. Ambedkar rejected the notion of economic power alone. It could dismantle caste inequalities, right? And he's pointing out that the religion, the social status, and property collectively uphold caste hierarchies. So it's not just economic power alone. And then what are the criticism? You can talk about functionalist criticism, and then you can talk about neglect of nationalist cooperation. You can talk about lack of organizational building, method of law versus law you can talk about, right? And emergence of Dalit elites, that's another dimension which we can discuss. So there are various criticisms. So the see, whatever Ambedkar have given, these are valid points. But there are, of course, criticism if you look at different perspective. What the functionalists will argue, they say that the caste system ensured division of labor in traditional societies. But they acknowledge that assigning roles based on heredity rather than aptitude, that hampers efficiency and adaptability in modern context. But division of labor was there. In fact, that is something which they consider as good. Now, Ambedkar was again criticized for his focus on caste issues at the expense of aligning with the larger nationalist movement, which again aimed at uniting, India against the colonial rule. So he neglected that nationalist cooperation. He was more into the caste issues. That is one of the criticism that is on Ambedkar. Then again, critics point out that Ambedkar's ideas were not sufficiently institutionalized, and that's limiting their impact on societal transformation. Gandhians actually criticized Ambedkar for relying on legal measures rather than fostering social harmony and empathy through non-violent methods. Again, there are modern critics. They argue that the state-sponsored mobility, such as the reservations, this have led to the rise of Dalit elites, potentially creating new forms of inequality within the marginalized communities also. So that is the emergence of Dalit elites. This is a main point that you need to write in your answer. So how can we conclude now? See, the caste system, despite its constitutional safeguards, continues to perpetuate inequality in social, economic, and political dimensions. Ambedkar's vision of constitutional morality, prioritizing rationality, equality, and justice over religious dogma, offers a pathway to dismantle caste hierarchies. And his legacy inspires the ongoing struggle against casteism, urging individuals and society to embrace his spirit of resilience and reform. So, see, as India grapples with casteism, communalism, and other socio-economic challenges, Ambedkar critique remains profoundly relevant at any point of time. As long as these issues are there, Ambedkar criticisms remain relevant. So, by addressing both systemic inequalities and individual mindsets, his vision of just society can guide, efforts towards an egalitarian and inclusive future. So, this is what you need to write in your answer. If you don't have the space and time, you need to arrange it accordingly, but these are the elements that you need to cover in your answer. So most of the topics which we have already discussed in our mentorship classes and the normal course. So that's the reason why I skipped that important areas of caste. I just went into the most important points that we need to discuss. So guys, if you find this video helpful, share it with your friends who are preparing for sociology. And in case if you're looking for any mentorship program, test series, or the sociology course, or any value addition program, if you've already joined some other courses, get in touch with us, or you can check out the details in the description also. So see you in the next video. Thank you so much.